Well, Dan, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We certainly appreciate you taking the time. We have not been through this with you before. We'll just kind of jump into questions on Senate issues and your background and your plans, and kind of go from there. So you've not been in the state government
Before?
realm before?
No.
And you're going for District 10 State Senate.
Yes.
So how do you view the job of a state senator? What is it? When you look at it,
Mm-hmm.
how do you picture what it's going to be like, and how are you planning to approach it?
Well, I'm approaching it the way, and before the primary, I tried to get out and have meetings, talk to as many people as possible. I've talked with police officers, medical personnel, the general public, different communities. I've talked with the Serenity Center in Keene, just to find out their views and opinions on what's going on in our area, what they would like to see fixed or addressed, or, the important issues that mean a lot to them. And I found the biggest couple are the drug issues that we have, the mental health, lack of mental health resources that we face as a state. Taxes are always a big burden on people. So those have been the biggest things that people have brought to my attention, and everybody has different ways that they'd like to see them addressed, and that's primarily what I think my role should be when elected in November is, this is what people want to see done, and it's the people that get you elected, so you want to do what they want. You want to make sure that you're doing what they're asking of you, because being elected to this type of position, you're basically a public servant and you're doing what the community wants you to do.
Your opponent probably would identify those same three issues as things that he's focusing on. So how are you different than he on those?
Well, the biggest thing is, I'm a big supporter of Chris Sununu and he just got $48 million or so from the federal government for the drug issues we have. His plan is to set up 9 hubs throughout the state of New Hampshire, all within an hour's driving distance. It implements multiple rehab approaches. It has back to work programs. It has mental health counseling, which is huge. The other thing I'd also like to see is to be able to allow our law enforcement to be more active in catching the drug dealers that we face, or that they face. When somebody has an overdose, I think it's very imperative that the police officers are able to question the people that have overdosed, and find out where they're getting their drugs from. Offer them, hey, this is an issue. Let's offer them a rehab program like the one that Chris Sununu is setting up. And that way it gives them more ability to do their investigations instead of just going on by leads that they might get from a random phone call, or let's get it right from the source of where these drugs are going to. When it comes to the tax issues, I know my opponent didn't vote for the budget because of the business tax cuts that are proposed, because Democrats had said that if we have these business tax cuts, it's going to give New Hampshire a deficit of $90 million, and in fact the opposite has happened. With the tax cuts, and luckily the budget had passed, they were able to put $100 million in the rainy day fund. That's quite substantial. Our unemployment rate's at a 2.6%. Businesses are moving in. We have the dog company moving into Swanzey. That, from what I heard, their rate of pay is starting between $18 and $20 an hour. I know Jansowitz and Son is moving across moving across the river to North Walpole. They're rehabbing a building to set up their shop over there. So good things are happening. I mean, you go through Keene and there's help wanted signs everywhere. You know, there's job fairs. There was one, last week? There's another one for River Valley Community College coming up again soon, because there's more jobs than there is employees. And that's great, because when you have something like that, the employees or the employers, they have to hire them at higher wages, because there's so much competitiveness, because there's enough people to fill the positions. You know, that's what drives up people's salaries and able to have a better cost of living.
So when you talk about these as the issues that you see before the state and this area, how would you approach affecting them as a legislator? Are there what are your legislative priorities? Are there bills that you say, when I get there, I'm going to propose this?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of my big issues that I feel real strongly about is equal shared parenting for two fit loving parents. Because statistically, it's been proven that if both children spend at least 35% of time or more with both parents, they are more adept to social situations. They do better in school. They are less likely to use drugs or alcohol. They're less likely to have mental health issues as an adult. The rate of teen pregnancy drops dramatically. The rate of teen suicide drops dramatically. You know, and in my first year, that's one bill that I would love to be able to co-sponsor, is to be able to get an equal shared parenting bill on the books. And over time, you won't see numbers drop right away, but over time you're going to see these drug addiction numbers slowly decrease, the mental health problems slowly decrease, because it's such a huge issue.
So I get the idea of equal sharing of parenting,
Mm-hmm.
But what would the bill or a bill actually do? How would it change laws?
Well, as it's set up right now, a lot of parents, either mother or father, statistically it's fathers. 85% nationwide, 85% of mothers end up with the primary custodial parent, while only 15% of fathers. And unfortunately, it puts one parent in as what they call more of a visitor. You know, they get there every other weekend, which isn't enough time to have an effective impact on a child's life, because you're only with them 8 days a month. You know, and like I was saying, the studies have shown that when a child doesn't have equal contact with both parents in that fashion, then they are apt to have a lot more issues. You know, where an equal shared parenting bill would say, hey, guess what? It's a presumption of 50-50 equal shared parenting. Both parents have equal time with their child, unless there is some type of abuse or neglect or something, or drug abuse, something along that lines. Then obviously it changes, because you don't want children with a parent that has any type of drug addiction or physically or verbally abusive or anything along that line. But if you have two fit loving parents that love their kids and want to be there for them and do what's best for them, I think there should be a presumption of 50-50 equal shared parenting.
When it comes to addressing the opioid crisis, you've touched a little bit on needs in terms of law enforcement. What do you think specifically lawmakers need to do to continue addressing the crisis?
Like I said, Kristen Nunu's plan's great. I think we also need to be able to incorporate other forms of rehabilitation programs that have proven results. I've talked with Jeremy Miller. He's a pastor in the Center Church in Winchester. And actually on the 15th, I'm headed up to Manchester to look at the New Hope for Teens and Teen Challenge and New Hope for Women. They're 2 drug rehab programs that are, nonprofit based. They have an 85% success rate. I know people shy away from it because it's faith based, but with those types of numbers, somebody doesn't have to pay attention to the faith part of it. If it's showing that, we have an 85% success rate for the people that come here, why aren't we offering this to the general public? Why is it really kind of kept a secret and only brought forth of somebody that might belong to a church or some type of organization like that?
Would this require new spending by additional spending by the state? And if so, does that mean you have to find it somewhere else, or how do you make this happen in the legislature?
As of right now, like I said, it's all nonprofit. All their money is donated. People that go there, obviously there's a cost. So, if people can afford to pay, they always welcome the money to be able to, keep the facility running. But if people are not able to pay, they don't force them because they want to make sure people are getting the help they need. There's a lot of volunteers along with
I
it.
thought you were proposing that the state do more to make treatment options available.
Oh yeah, and to make treatment options available, it's not always necessarily like, okay, let's fund this, so we're gonna we'll recommend this because we're putting money towards it. They can say, okay, we're at a medical facility, or when I was talking like Southwest Community Services, I was asking them about when they have people that come in addicted to drugs, and they didn't really have any information to give anybody. It's just a matter of saying, hey, okay, you have to go to court because you have another drug possession, and we know that you've been to the medical center, I don't know how many, or multiple times or a couple times because of some type of intoxication. Here are some options, Here's, why don't you go to, this has an 85% success in rehabilitation, and just have that offered to people. Offering something doesn't come at a cost.
So it's not making more treatment options available, it's informing about the options more effectively.
Yeah, no. Well, exactly.
Turning to healthcare for a moment, now that the expanded Medicaid program is in place for at least the next few years, what do you think still needs to be done to improve healthcare costs and access in the state?
Honestly, I'm not quite positive. The expansion of Medicaid is great as long as we can keep getting the federal funding from it. I mean, I would not support it if federal funding dries up, because that's $350 million that we get to be able to offer these programs, and that would cost the state or the people in our state a lot of money in taxes, because we'd have to get it from somewhere. As far as medical services, I mean, I know even if you don't have insurance, you can't get turned away from a medical facility, and I know they offer options of some form of help if you have a hard time paying your medical bills, and things along that line. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
So it sounds like you don't necessarily see access as a. Are you saying that access isn't a top issue that you see with healthcare right now, or?
It's not something that people have brought to my attention.
Okay.
So I guess I haven't really spent a lot of time really focusing on it. So.
Dan, earlier you mentioned taxes as one of your key issues, and I own a home, so when I think about my tax burden,
Right.
it's essentially property taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Which in Keene are pretty high, and I know are in a number of other communities around here. So you talked a little bit about business taxes in terms of that, but
Right.
are there ways that you would approach trying to lower property taxes for residents of the state, or?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I think that we can really focus and take a look at. I know all the states around us, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, they've all legalized marijuana. You know, if you're able to legalize marijuana, regulate it, and tax it, you could use that taxes raised to be able to put towards schools and education, which would in turn lower your property taxes. The other thing is too is don't know if you all are well aware, but Springfield, Vermont just opened a gambling facility. And this I would definitely have to take more time and do more research to figure out the effects of having a gambling facility in New Hampshire, just because I don't know enough of what will happen over time within the community and the other effects that take place with other types of addiction. So obviously there's extensive research that would have to be done, but doing something along that lines, maybe some type of gambling facility in Manchester or Concord, because as of right now, people want to go to a casino, they'll just jump on 91, head to Fox's. Now they don't even have to go all the way to Fox's, they can just drive an hour, and so people are getting their gambling fill anyway. So if we're able to take some of that with the people that are going to casinos no matter what, and be able to create jobs and more revenue for our state, that's another way to look at it, and use that revenue to offset the cost of property taxes. The last thing that I'm really not opposed of is the school scholarship fund. I know you guys know the bill that was at 193 that didn't pass last year, but right now, if your child's in school for in public school, it costs the state per pupil somewhere around $15,000. But if you want your student or your child that there's a program that they're able to excel more in, maybe some type of trade or trade school or vocational or something along that lines, and now it's only costing the state $5,000 for the school scholarship program as opposed to $15,000, which, like I said, would in turn.
When you say it costs the state $15,000,
Or the school,
it's the district.
The district itself, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because part of that money comes from the state. And,
Right. There's the state education adequacy aid, but
Right.
Most schools spend more than that per student. So, so the other half of revenues, you mentioned several potential revenue streams in dealing with the state budget, is limiting spending or cutting back. Are there specific areas that you see that the state is spending money on where you think it could be cutting back, or things the state is doing that you think shouldn't be doing and should eliminate?
I can't say that positively yet, because I haven't been in enough to see exactly where everything's being distributed. I know there's definitely ways and there's restrictions that are put on, like school districts or development or companies that deal with people that have disabilities. There's restrictions put in place there that if you're able to release some of those restrictions and distribute more money that they get from the state equally to all aspects of say a school district or one of those agencies, I think they would be able to fund different programs more efficiently, if that makes sense.
Okay, so redistributing special ed aid or money.
Well, not just special ed, but in its entirety. And I give this example to people, especially when it comes to our public education system. Because as of right now, the school district gets a certain amount of money. That certain amount of money gets distributed to, obviously you have teacher salaries, but then, a certain amount of money goes towards science and social studies and English and math and kindergarten and whatever else. And like I was talking about, my brother's a PE teacher in Ringe, and he was going over his budget last year, and they tell him, hey, if you don't spend this money, you're going to lose it for next year. So they just end up buying stuff that they may need in the future, but not necessarily right now. Now, what if we're able to say, hey, guess what? Our PE has a surplus of, say, $1,000 that they don't need any more of that money right now. But instead of losing it, we're able to say, well, our English class needs this supply or could use these types of books. Okay, why can't we just take that money and transfer it over, and next year you still don't lose it because you still used it for education?
But can't they?
Why do teachers have to spend money or lose it?
What it said is probably that the administrators are making that call in each district or at each
Yeah.
school.
Well,
But I think they have the flexibility to do that.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, well, I was talking to my uncle. He's also a teacher down in Massachusetts, and he's had the same argument. He said, because I told him basically what I told you is, hey, this is what happened. He goes, yeah. He's like, I don't know why they don't do that, but yeah, if he doesn't use a certain amount of money that he has allotted for his classroom, then he loses it. It's like, that doesn't make any sense if another area could use it, And it's just like the Keno kindergarten thing that has been brought forth lately, where we're able to use $11 million is going to the school systems from the Keno gambling for kindergarten. It's like, okay, well, if one school district doesn't need all the money that it got, but it specifically says, well, it's from the state and it says it's for kindergarten and you have to use it for kindergarten. Well, if they get $50,000 and they only need 30, but they have another area or 3 or 4 other areas, an after-school program or some type of extracurricular activities or anything along that lines, why can't we just shift that money over, because it's going to be for the betterment of the children in our district?
So among one of the more well-chronicled challenges the state faces is the number of, the rate and the trend of the number of young people who are leaving the state.
Mhm.
It's worrisome from an educational perspective, it's worrisome from a workforce development perspective. Have you given thought to ways in which you might work toward helping to stem that tide?
Well, actually, in the past couple years, we have the fastest growing population in New England. So people are moving back into the state of New Hampshire faster than any other state in New England, because of our low taxes. We don't have an income tax or sales tax, which brings a lot of people in. Businesses are moving back in. So there's a lot of jobs available, and with more jobs available than, like I was saying before, than there is employees, then wages obviously go up. So people are noticing that, and we're seeing quite a growth in population in New Hampshire.
So does it matter to you, though, that we're losing the young adults, whether it's high schoolers deciding to go to college elsewhere or high schoolers attending college here and then opting to go someplace else to work because there's not available jobs for what they're being trained to do here? It's a little bit different than people migrating in.
Yeah.
Although you can assume some of those are young adults. But.
Right. Well, I would hope. I mean, last time I checked, not a lot of people that are retiring moved to New Hampshire. Usually it's Florida. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously you want to be able to keep our young adults in New Hampshire and be able to offer opportunities that are that fit their education background and what they want to pursue in their life. So yes, I'd like to see more people stay. But like I was saying, on the other hand, we still have the fastest growing population in New England. So, and like I was just saying before, I'm assuming that they're young adults and people wanting to start families, and with the job growth and the jobs that we have available.
What about thoughts relative to the cost of higher education, college education in this state, and the debt load that our students carry?
Oh yeah.
What should we be doing as a state, to your view, to help that?
Really, there's multiple approaches to higher education. I finished my bachelor's degree online, which is now Purdue Global, and got my bachelor's in legal studies. I'm currently enrolled in Taft Law School, which is based out of California, my first year of law school. And, the average cost of a traditional law school per year is, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000. This school costs about $8,000 a year. So there's multiple avenues in today's day and age that kids can, travel down and see. I mean, you have community colleges, you have online education, so if someone wants to be able to get a good quality education at an affordable price, there's options for them out there to be able to do that. I'm not sure it's necessarily the state's responsibility to make sure these college and universities, or the state should be backing or funding the college or universities, because, like I said, there's a lot of different options that young adults have nowadays to be able to get a good, solid education.
But they are a huge part of the state's economic engine. So is it to your view then too that our public institutions have to be more open to these alternative pathways?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of colleges now that, I mean, you can do it a lot online, and I don't know what Keene State offers. I know River Valley Community College offers a good online program where sometimes you have to go to classes. My mom got her, not her nursing LNA or something along that lines. She was able to go back to school, partly online, partly in class, at the age of 59, and got a degree. I mean, which is pretty tremendous. So I think that's something that a lot of these public colleges and universities should really look into. Is, hey, guess what? Let's offer some more of these online and make it more cost efficient for students.
I just want to test the limits of this. Are you saying that the state shouldn't be funding public universities and colleges at all?
Oh no, I'm not saying that, but it really should be, kind of limited, to, what the needs are of the students, I guess, with the options that are out there.
So shifting from the high cost of education to the high cost of energy, the state has some of the nation's highest energy costs. What do you think about that, and what might a comprehensive energy program look like to your view?
Honestly, I'm not sure. To be completely blunt about it, we do have high energy costs. I mean, we outsource a lot of our energy from other states. I think if we were able to implement some type of energy facility in New Hampshire, that encompasses all sorts of energy, solar power, clean energy along that lines, I think over time it'd be cost effective for the state of New Hampshire, and potentially lower rates, especially if it's solar based. But you also have to, once again, you have to look at cost, comparative cost, because you don't want to jump in all in at once and have this overburden of expenses that then translates to put a burden on the taxpayers. So you really have to look at all avenues of what can what can we do efficiently right now to slowly work our way towards that. You know, so.
So there was a bill in the most recently completed legislative session to raise the cap on net metering, which would have, to its proponents, a way of looking at it, led to a greater use of alternative sources of energy, which you seem to be advocating. Would that have been a good idea if that had passed? Or had been enacted, I guess I should
No,
say.
because like I was saying, you can't really jump in both feet all at once with extra costs. From my understanding of that bill, if it had passed, it would have raised people's electrical rates. You know, I'm not sure exactly what the percentage was. It was gonna raise the rates. I think it was somewhere around 20 or 30% or so. But that can be a lot of money for people that have a single income or elderly people that are on a fixed income. You know, young families, single parents. So an extra $20 or $30 a month in electrical costs can mean a lot to them. You know, so like I said, I am for to be able to look at alternative ways to create energy, but we also have to be responsible and make sure that it's not going to come at a tremendous cost to people.
Are there any issues or needs you've identified that you feel are specific to the district that you're running to represent? And if so, how would you address them?
Specific needs.
Any
Like-
specific issues that are especially relevant here in the district that you would be representing?
Oh yeah, like I said, we have the drug issues that we face, and I touched on that. Have the shared parenting issue, which is bigger than what a lot of people realize, and the effects that has on people and children. You know, and the mental health issues that we face as a community. So those are all the main things that I've been talking to people about. You know.
Is there anything that you think is perhaps more relevant here than other parts of the state? Something that, you know, the Monadnock region is really struggling with that our local legislators need to look at?
Really, like I said, the biggest thing is the drug issues that we see on a daily basis. I was Jim Beard, who's running for executive council. He just went on a ride along with Keene PD, and within that time that he was with them, I forget how many hours, there was 3 calls for drug overdoses in just that one shift. I mean, that's tremendous for this area. I mean, that's our biggest obstacle that we have to overcome, is being able to curb that and, you know, get people the help that they need, and, you know, get the drug dealers and whoever else off the street.
Do you think that the region, the Monadnock region, gets its fair share of state resources?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think we do.
Okay.
You know.
So you don't think that the Monadnock region needs to be made more of a priority on that level?
As far as
In terms of the share of state resources?
the share of state resources, I mean, obviously you want to see state resources go to the towns that are affected the most, you know. So I guess when like the Chris Nunu's plan for the drug rehabilitation program that he's proposing, he's putting one of the hubs actually right in Keene, which is huge because Keene's affected the most. So yeah, so the things along that lines, you know, the whole drug issues. I mean, they've already made it a priority that Keene's going to be one of the main stops for prevention.
Dan, is there anything else helpful or useful that we should know about you or your candidacy that we haven't talked about today?
I don't know. Is there any more you want to know about me?
Well, one thing that you touched on earlier, you talked about the prospect of legalizing marijuana as a revenue stream. And obviously, taking that step also has repercussions in other areas.
Oh,
You
yeah,
have
I
a
know.
background as in law enforcement.
Yes.
How do you see that playing out?
And that's one thing I've talked to people about too, is just like, I'm not opposed to legalizing marijuana. It's just the fact that we need to be able to give officers a way to be able to, because as of right now, if somebody's driving under the influence of marijuana, they have no way of testing it, and that's something that we have to be able to implement, because we have to be able to make sure that they have the resources necessary to keep people that are under any type of intoxication out from behind the wheel of a vehicle. So that's something that that we need to be able to help them on that lines. Just from looking the studying that I've done about marijuana, I mean there's never been any drug overdoses from smoking too much marijuana. There's really no detox from if you quit smoking marijuana, except for irritability. But I don't know if any of you have ever seen anybody detox of alcohol. Have anybody seen anybody detox from alcohol in here?
TV shows about it.
Yeah. No, working security at the medical center, I had unpleasant privilege to see that multiple times, and it's not something that you want to see. People have hallucinations, they have blackouts, they have fits of rage, and alcohol, I think, in my opinion, is way more of a dangerous drug than marijuana is. So, and the side effects that comes with alcohol. So.
It sounds like maybe we ought to have more alcohol laws than.
then we won't have people coming from Vermont, Massachusetts to our liquor stores.
You also talked earlier about, actually right off the bat, about mental health. And you did work security at Cheshire Medical, and one of the things that, the dynamics that has evolved in New Hampshire is that emergency rooms and hospitals become holding places for people with mental health problems because there's not enough beds, there's not enough resources. How would you, legislatively again, because you're going for a legislative position, what would your approach be to try to deal with that dynamic?
See, that's that one's difficult because you have to be able to find money somewhere to be able to, open more beds or have another facility. That's why I'm a big supporter of Chris Sununu plans, because it offers mental health programs for people.
I would not probably as up as I should be on that plan. Does it increase beds? These hubs that are around the state would have. They'd be inpatient.
I'm not positive of like all the intricate details that involve in it, but the outlining programs offers mental health counseling. So anything more is better than what we have in place right now. So you can't shy away from it. Like you said, at the medical center, there's what we called standbys when I worked security there. Yeah. And it's really sad because you have some people that are there for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days stuck in a room, eating sandwiches from the cafeteria, and it's really horrendous. I mean, I've seen some things there that are just not okay. I mean, I've seen people, and this is going back 6, 7 years ago, but I've seen people come in there. So a gentleman came in one night with an alcohol addiction. He came in on a Saturday, said, you know what, I need help, I want to get help, I can't do it on my own. If you let me leave, all I'm going to do is go out and get blackout drunk. I don't want to leave. I need help. And they literally, I don't know what has changed since then. I'm hoping that this still doesn't happen, but they said there's nothing we can do for you right now. Come back Monday and we can get you hopefully into some type of outpatient program. And they sent him home. That's awful.
So when you talk about you'd want to see more mental health options, more beds available, more counseling, but the worry is that there's not funding for that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's always
it's just-
the dynamic that you
It,
have
it,
to
it really
worry
is.
about.
You have a fine line because you say, oh, I want to fund this. People are like, oh, in order to fund that, you're going to have to raise taxes. And
Is-
you're saying you don't want to raise taxes. It's
Right.
like, well, I don't have really, because I haven't been part of the Senate or legislature at all. It's like I don't have a clear look of exactly where all the costs are being spent and what's being funded in certain areas.
Right.
So, once elected, I'll be able to have that opportunity to be like, okay, what areas can we cut or trim down to be able to put more money into our mental health facilities to be able to open up more beds and offer more resources. That way it's not a burden put on the taxpayers.
So it wouldn't be necessarily a question of finding more money or spending more money, but maybe reprioritizing
Right.
what we're spending on.
Well, exactly.
That
It's
would be a higher priority for you than maybe some other.
Oh yeah, because it's a big issue around here, and like a lot of times it's not about more spending. It's about restructuring the programs that you already have. And I use the example, like one company buys out another company. What do? They send somebody in there. They evaluate all the positions. They see what each person does as a job to see if they can reform it or trim the edges off to make it work more efficiently and be more profitable. And some aspects of what we do in the state is kind of like what these companies do when they buy out other companies. We just have to look at the programs, say, hey, what's working? Where is money being spent? What can we trim? Where can other money go to make things more effective? And hopefully cut costs and be able to put that money into other programs.
All right. Well, we appreciate you stopping by.
Oh no, I appreciate you. Hopefully, I answered all your questions. I know some of the stuff I don't have a lot of knowledge about because, like I said, it's my first time running, and I've been really focusing on the issues that people have brought to my attention. So and like I was saying, the top three were, taxes, mental health, and drug problems. So that's I've really spent a lot of my time, talking. So like I was at the vigil a few weeks back for the Serenity Center where they had the overdose awareness, and I was able to speak to a lot of people there, heard a lot of their stories, and I like I said, I'm going on the 15th to the Teen Challenge and New Hope for Women to check out their facilities and to see how that program works and how that's implemented. So it's been a pretty good journey so far. I've learned quite a bit. I've been involved in quite a bit, and hopefully when I'm elected in November, I'll be able to make some good changes, for our state.